So I just want to make the air clear. I am not burning your bus.
I think you probably burn your
misinterpreted
bus.
the tweet.
I think I got it like a 25% chance that you're burning your buster.
Oh shit! I thought you meant that you actually liked.
I do like the Electoral College too, though. But we can go through those arguments, but it's gonna be the same. I can do both sides of it if you want, like in 2 seconds. We're not gonna agree on it.
Okay. Talk to me about why you like Electoral
I think it's
College.
important that states are represented disproportionately, and that we don't just like elect the president by mob rule. I think it's gonna have a balance between state interests and a balance between people, between individual citizens.
Okay, wait. I guess like I'm a little bit confused because can't you argue that individual citizens are still voting for the presidency?
Yeah, kind of, but like California would have far more impact if we did it by mob rule versus like trying to wait it a little bit than other states.
Okay, because I used to have a similar opinion, but my opinion was rooted in the fact that I was arguing like, okay, yeah, they should have like more. If you don't have an electoral system in place, then there's no way that smaller states are going to be able to have a say when it comes to the government. And then actual Jake gave me the counter reply, or I guess like counter argument that small states already have a nice amount of power by just having the Senate in general, right? Being able to elect two people regardless of how much population.
Yeah, the Senate is half of one of our other branches of government, and I feel like having that same the presidency too is also good.
Okay, because the whole point is like, even if you have the presidency and the House, if you don't have the Senate, you're still kind of fucked. Don't you agree?
Depends, but generally, yeah. I mean, you could have a supermajority or whatever, but sure.
Yeah, because the whole thing is that it doesn't matter if you have presidency and House. If the Senate doesn't like what's going on, they can veto bills. They can
depending on if you have a supermajority or not. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I should have done this ahead of time, but I was doing homework, so I wasn't able to do my chart. So you still don't believe the whole thing about Shadow Inc. has any conflict of interest, right?
I don't believe that it's a substantial that like if the CEO of a company likes a candidate, that means that that entire company can have no business like working with any of the candidates. I don't believe that, no.
Okay, I agree just liking a candidate isn't enough to disqualify. However, I do think that because they have done business with multiple other candidates, there is a conflict of interest there that shouldn't be allowed to exist in the first place, especially when you can theoretically hire another firm that hasn't done business with other candidates, or even theoretically count the districts or count the votes through something as simple as an Excel sheet, if you like do it properly.
No, you'd have to demonstrate like how that conflict of interest can manifest in a problem then.
Okay, I'm willing to do that. So let's start with, I guess, the first premise.
Wait, let's start. Actually, yeah, wait. The very, very, very first premise. So, what is Shadow's connection to Pete Buttigieg? How about we start with that?
Yeah, I agree. So you have Shadow, and I'm speaking in like general terms, and then you can interrupt me or correct me at any point in time. So they're a company that works specifically when it comes to software and election-related software. Mm-hmm. What their direct connection with Pete Buttigieg is, and there's various numbers reporting on this, ranging from $20,000 to $100,000, is that Pete Buttigieg has bought, or his campaign has bought, texting software from Shadow.
Yep.
Yeah. So okay. So they bought texting software. So here's the deal, right? Mm-hmm. The whole idea of this texting software is that when sent to the right people, or when done correctly, it's going to either, theoretically, the whole purpose of it is improve fundraising or improve voter turnout, motivate more people when you send the text messages to the right folks, to go out and vote or to go out and donate. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I imagine that's probably what the purpose of buying any software for election-related stuff is. Yeah, sure. Okay.
So, to me, what logically follows is that if a company like Shadow wants to continue to do business, and I'm not saying, by the way, I'm just saying like how there could be a conflict of interest here, like I'm just illustrating just for the future. But anyways, if a company of Shadow wants to continue doing business or wants to get more of their software bought or more of these text messages sent out, they would have to prove that these messages are working, right? That they're targeting the right populations, that they're getting more fundraising with where the messages are being sent at, that it's helping the campaign. Would you say that's right or wrong?
Yeah, these are called KPIs in the industry. You want a key performance indicator maybe to make sure that there's some sort of
yeah.
Yeah, some sort of like performance indicator.
Right. So what it appears to me to be is that when it comes to selling the software to any candidate, in order to keep their business afloat and to keep it going, their main interest here is to show that, hey, their software is working, more people are voting or going out to vote because these text messages are being sent out to the right people. So everything I said you've agreed with so far. Is that right or wrong? Or is there anything that you'd be like, Yeah,
I gotta agree with that so far.
Okay. So now Shadow, as a company that is creating the software to keep count of the districts of what is it? To tally votes, right?
To be clear, the software was just used to report votes. They weren't actually like voting on the software or anything, just to be super clear about that, but okay.
Yeah, creating software to report votes. So what appears, and maybe you're gonna be like, oh no, that's like going like too far, conspiracy theory or whatever, but I'm just trying to illustrate how there could be a conflict of interest. If you're trying to create a software to count votes, then you want the software to be as unbiased and as functional as possible, right? As straightforward as possible. Is that right or incorrect?
I mean, I would imagine so. You've just described a broad goal of pretty much all software is to be easily usable, accessible, yeah.
Right. So unbiased and easily accessible. I'm like typing this down on my computer just in case. However, so your main goal here is to be as unbiased as you can when it comes to reporting results. I
don't know if I'd say unbiased so much as accurate, but sure. I don't know if that matters here, but okay.
So to me, this is where the conflict of interest come in, because if you as a company want to keep people to buying your text messaging software, et cetera, show that, oh yeah, more people are voting or whatever, then it can create a scenario where that directly conflicts with your goal of being unbiased and transparent about reporting the data.
I totally disagree. And I could name it very easily a capitalist alternative for why that wouldn't work. If a scandal were to come out where you were to try to fudge the vote totals on an election where a paper ballot is backing up every single digitally reported thing, your company would tank immediately and nobody would buy services from you ever again because you would become a toxic asset if we're going to go down that road.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing that it would be a shitty move to do. But what I'm saying is that the whole point is that this conflict still arises. So why even, like, let's say you have an idiot in charge who thinks that they can get away with doing both, because they have both of these interests in mind, or a bunch of, like, let's say, not even malicious, just incompetent people running this shit who think that, oh no, like, by doing this, we're gonna be able to play both sides, whatever, because they have these conflicts of interest. Wouldn't you say that would just be easier to find a company that doesn't?
You make it sound like there are 12 million companies that do this stuff. I'm gonna guess at like the amount of companies that do software related to like election data or polling data, probably not that many. It makes sense that like people would share resources between like all these people. I'm sure that there are lots of candidates that use a lot of similar softwares and things from a lot of like the same companies. It probably happens all the time, I would imagine.
I still don't think that's a fair statement to make, because even if it's like, let's make a ridiculous small amount. Let's say it's even 3 companies. There's probably one that doesn't do business directly related with these other candidates, or even not. Like, you can theoretically do the polling data in a freaking Excel sheet. If you basically if you do it right. I don't want to I can talk to you about the theory of being able to do that in an Excel sheet, but the point is Shadow didn't have to be the company who did this thing, even if there's like a limited amount of companies that do work.
I'm not really convinced of that. I don't think it's been adequately demonstrated. I still think we're engaging at like a pretty high level of conspiratorial thinking that somebody would try to lie about a caucus just to get people to use their app stuff more. That seems like highly conspiratorial to me.
It's not. No, it's not that they would. It's just that all I'm trying to prove is that the conflict of interest exists there. And why should you have like? Why should it, or why defend it existing when you can find another company?
Because you make it sound like it's that easy to just find another company that just does like election polling like that. It's probably not that easy. It's probably why a lot of them share resources. You would have to demonstrate that there are a plethora of companies that do the same type of data analysis that they could have adequately chosen from. Like, well, why wouldn't they choose that over that? Like, that's like, if you could demonstrate that, I might be a little bit more likely. But even so, like, we're engaged in a pretty high level of conspiratorial thought here. Like at this point, like how many different companies would I have to reevaluate, like whether they could be biased just because they might lie about something to get somebody to use their app more? Like that's a super high level of conspiratorial thinking. Like at this level, like if any staffer were to die in any campaign, we could start to make the same connections. Like, well, you know, if these people sell software to some candidate, wouldn't it make sense if they were to get other people murdered in order to try to like make the campaigns that they sell to more popular? Like that's the level of conspiracy that we're engaging in at the moment. That I just don't think is healthy.
I feel like I strongly disagree here. I think my biggest disagreement with you here is the idea that, oh no, this is so limited they had to use Shadow.
Well, can you think of any other companies? Can you demonstrate any other companies that...
I mean, it's not even any other companies. It's the fact that you can literally do this on an Excel sheet. You don't need to hire even necessarily like some super advanced firm.
That is not true at all. That's just not true.
If I can't do it tonight. If I was able to get you in contact with somebody who
you can't. I promise you can't. The idea of being able to take like multiple voters from across different districts and to be able to tabulate all of that using an application that keeps track of everything, like the database itself might be trivial, but the actual application and the user interface and getting a program that works across a multitude of platforms that also like exports that data in a meaningful fashion, I would bet my life and my child's life on it that you can't just quote unquote do that in a spreadsheet. That's trivializing the fuck out of a lot of work that goes into like software development. Like I just know that's not true.
Here. Okay, I'm not gonna continue further, but because like I'm not super duper extra well educated when it comes to like software engineering or app development, and specifically, but I would if you're open to it, I would like it if you had this argument with somebody who does have experience in that field. Would you be okay with that? Would you be open?
I would debate anybody in the world on that, but it would be an embarrassing conversation, I promise you. So if it's somebody that you like or somebody that you have a high opinion of, I wouldn't suggest that because they're going to look like a total fucking moron in that conversation. Like, I would put a lot of money behind that argument. You can't just do this in a spreadsheet. I promise you, you're not going to find anybody qualified to back that up.
Okay, if I do this in a spreadsheet, because I'm talking about specifically reporting the polling data from different precincts. Like, being able to get that data in there.
So what would they just use? Like they would just have like a shared Google Doc and they would just like...
Well, not necessarily. Okay, that sounds like very like simplistic, right?
Well, that's what you're saying. Do in a spreadsheet. What do you mean?
No, okay. What I'm saying is that theoretically with like Excel or theoretically with sheets or whatever, you can make it in a type of format, like let's say where only specific people can edit specific cells, and then you can theoretically have only like the leader of the caucuses, or not the leader of the caucuses, but the leader from those districts be able to input those specific data in those specific cells.
Okay, so you're talking about creating a spreadsheet that has, in the spreadsheet is going to be reporting for every single district, and then in every single district, what are there, 1,700 of them, 1,700? What are you going to do if somebody is sick or can't make it on the day of? Do you have a backup that can edit it for every single thing? You realize you have no security now because if those devices are compromised or given to any other person, then those results can be reported in a fictitious fashion, right? That you wouldn't know.
Well, isn't that the whole idea? Like when you're talking about like, oh, fictitious fashion, oh, these numbers like might be fictitious. Can't you make the same argument with like the reporting now? I'm a little bit confused.
I'm just saying that like you can't do this with just a spreadsheet. Like you need to be able to like, I think on this app, for instance, I think they gave out pin numbers on the night of. in order to make it so that like you would have to log in or whatever based on the pin you've been given. I don't know if you can do that on a spreadsheet. Maybe you can. But I don't think you can just do this. I mean, you could do it on spreadsheets. It just wouldn't be a very good idea. I mean,
I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that the software needed or whatever, or like I guess like the basics of doing this aren't that highly complicated. That Shadow is like the only place that would, I guess, be necessarily that necessarily has to be contracted for it.
I mean, I don't know anybody else that does this type of software work that would do like election reporting or whatever. Maybe there is,
okay.
But you would have to demonstrate that there are like alternatives to make me think that. And even if there was, I don't know why I wouldn't go by somebody that's already had like history in the industry doing that type of work. Why would I rely on just some random tech company when I could just hear like, oh, Biden's campaign has used these guys, these guys do accurate blah, 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 blah. Like, why would I go with some outsider when I could just use an app that's like already like in industry? It has an endemic presence. Like,
you're making it sound like Shadow has been like a big company that has been there for a couple of years.
Well, how long has Shadow existed and how many campaigns have they worked with? I mean, we could look that up if you want. It sounds like they've worked with Tulsi's campaign, and it sounds like they've done at least 3 or 4 different things with Biden's campaign. Like,
yeah. Okay, give me a second. Because at least when it comes to like this specific app, from what I read, but maybe this is just like misinformation because there's a lot of it going around. Is that this app started being in development like 2 months ago, and they never officially tested it. Which is, incredible to me that a software company would not test, or would not like try to attempt to test this before the actual election night.
Everything that was done with this app was stupid. I don't think they should have ever used it. They should have just done the paper ballot like they had always done. I don't know why they would go with an app. It was really fucking dumb.
Okay.
But that still doesn't excuse to the level of like conspiratorial thinking that the results were rigged or that the app was paid for by Pete's campaign or any of this crazy shit that some of the locals are saying right now.
The only thing that I'm like seeing right now in relation to like caucus reporting or whatever is that there has been, or at least there has been like various cases where people are like, oh no, like this number literally is not correlating to what
and a lot of those have just been dipshit progressives that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I would have to look at each individual example. But for instance, there was one where people talked about rounding errors, and if you look at it, the rounding is actually wrong. But if you actually look at the textbook for how they give out the delegates, the reason why the rounding was wrong was because they had 7 delegates to assign, only 6 were able to be done, so they go to the next like lowest rounded number, and Pete had the highest one at like 3.4 or whatever, so they rounded it up to a 4 because that's how they awarded it. So there's been a lot of misinformation like that spread by progressive that just didn't know how the process worked. So I mean, I'm sure there have been mistakes. There must be at something of that size. I'm sure there have been mistakes for sure, but not at this insane level that a lot of people are claiming.
I retweeted up these things so I can like check it out later. Maybe this is more of a conversation like this specific part. I still want to talk more about the election and stuff. Maybe off stream because I'm having a hard time going one by one and looking at these and being able to like I guess like sift through misinformation. So if you would ever want to, I guess, like help a charity case out or whatever and explain to me some of this stuff, or at least the specific ones that I found, and tell me like, oh no, like, or tell me like your opinion on it if you think, oh no, that this is just blatant, they're not like calculating right, or oh no, that's like an obvious.
I mean, I could, but the problem is I just don't have the background to do it. Much the same way that if some race realist dumb fuck were to try to give me like raw data on race and IQ, I wouldn't tell him that I'm going to sit there and sort through it with him. I would just rely on experts that have like a history of doing that to do it. I don't appreciate all the armchair backseating that's going on with a bunch of uneducated dipshits on Twitter that are trying to figure out where the rigging happened, who are all probably going to forget about this if it comes out that Bernie actually won, and then conveniently they'll never mention any of this again. Because it looks like if the last satellite caucus comes in as it looks like it might, it looks like Bernie's probably going to win anyway, so.
Yeah, because, okay. Because what I've just, like, been seeing is, like, a lot of people, again, like, on Twitter and stuff being like, hey, you know what? Like, I worked in this caucus. Like, these are the numbers I got.
Sure, so you say a lot. I've heard of one time of this happening, and it's the Black Hawk District. I haven't heard of any other ones where that's happened. Has anybody heard of any other one? I heard of the Black Hawk District having a discrepancy, but that's it.
Yeah, by a lot, I mean a lot of tweets.
Yeah, about the same like, one district, yes.
No, Black Hawk, and then there's another one that they were complaining about giving sire votes. But whatever, that's...
There was one where the votes were apparently, some were like miscalculated, or not miscalculated, where some were incorrectly assigned to Dyer and some other person. I don't know how that fits into a... Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think that's the one that is that one. I'm trying to like scroll through and find, but there's a lot period of stuff. But yeah, there was something I was gonna go back to. So, to you, for like I guess your opinion to kind of change on this, you would have to prove that there is more than I guess just a shadow polling application that is capable of doing this type of election data.
For my opinion, to change on what?
No, on the idea that there is like a conflict of interest with Shadow and that they weren't like absolutely necessary to have.
I don't know if you could change. I don't see a conflict of interest just because like some campaigns have worked with this means they can't make software data for any other like. No, I don't think I would. I think I would need like a different argument, like a different deductive argument. I don't think just like even if you could demonstrate that there might have been other software they could use. I don't agree that that's like some like insurmountable conflict of interest.
Okay.
We might just have to agree to disagree on that. I just don't see it that way.
Okay, that's fine. I guess that is just something to agree to disagree with, because I think that if you have other applications or other companies that are able to do this type of data and that have not necessarily like worked or done direct businesses with the candidates who are on stage right now, I don't see why we couldn't use a different company like that. But yeah, I guess again, like something to agree to disagree with. There was another thing that you mentioned the other day about something about how your opinion has changed over time. It was Electoral College, and it was one more.
Citizens United?
Citizens United, yes. I would love to hear your opinion on that.
Oh, wait, so real quick, just curious. If there were other companies doing that type of election data, what would you say if a company tried to like make an app or whatever, but it was literally impossible for them to be profitable if they didn't sell their services to other candidates? Would you just say that that type of thing should never exist then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay, what was the other thing?
You were talking about Citizens United. You talked about how your opinion has changed over some time because of that, and I just want to know what of your opinion has changed and why has it changed, I guess.
I used to think that the idea of Citizens United, that like companies shouldn't be able to show ads and shit for other companies, like the existence of super PACs, I thought that all of this was like pretty bad. But I guess like looking at the flip side arguments for it, it doesn't seem like there's any other way to do things that wouldn't be like massively horrible for, I guess, like freedom of speech.
You said, I mean, can you like elaborate that a little bit about the
Sure,
whole
so
thing,
Citizens United protects the rights of private citizens to run advertisements and to fund things that might be deemed political or whatever around like election seasons, basically.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think that it can be as simplified as, what is it? Or yeah, because I thought the whole thing about the ruling of Citizens United is that basically said companies do have freedom of speech. Or should be treated like citizens.
Citizens United has to do with whether or not you can show, like, Citizens United was a company that wanted to run a documentary and show advertisements for it about Hillary Clinton around an election season.
Yeah, no, I know what Citizens United was. I thought that one of the biggest like complaints about it is that basically because of the end ruling, they stated that, oh yeah, companies do have freedom of speech, or that they do have, they basically can be treated as like citizens.
Progressives use that phrase in a lot of different ways. I don't know what you mean when you say can be treated as citizens. Like a company doesn't have like the right to get married to somebody, or a company doesn't have like the ability to like rape some. I don't know what that means. Like in some ways you want companies to have rights as citizens. Like you want to be able to sue a company, for instance. You want them to be able to appear in court. In other ways you want them to be taxable entities. So you want them to be recognized by the IRS as people in that way, or entities in that way. So I don't know what you mean when you say like companies are people.
Okay. No, I was just like, I have to honestly like do more research on Citizens United, which is why I haven't made like a clear statement on it yet. But yeah, that's what was just a general argument I saw floating around, so I just wanted to see your opinion on that.
Yeah, a lot of people say it, but they don't have like any meaning behind it.
I
don't know.
Okay.
Like they just say companies shouldn't be people.
Yeah, no, because to me when you wrote the statement, or I don't remember the exact, when the statement, or I agree with the statement or not, I guess. The whole point of like, oh, consequences of freedom of speech. Couldn't somebody argue that freedom of speech should only belong to the individual? So therefore, like, I guess the entities as a whole aren't, what is it? aren't entitled to it? You don't think that's a logical statement to make?
I mean, it depends on what you mean when you say that, I guess.
Like, okay, I feel like I'm not being very
like
clear,
when you say like a
which is
company
my
shouldn't have
fault.
freedom of speech, like what do you mean? Should a company not be allowed to like run advertisements, or like what do you mean by that?
Or I'm saying that I guess like a company does, or I guess like a company is subjected to government oversight.
Companies
Or
are,
can
people are subjected to government oversight, and companies are
no,
as well.
I didn't finish my
Oh,
sentence.
sorry, go ahead, my bad.
That companies would be subjected to government oversight when it comes to speech, right? So the whole idea of freedom of speech is that you can say whatever you want to say, and the government can't exactly like jail you for it. In very general and broad terms. And I guess like that same freedom wouldn't necessarily be applied to corporations.
That's also vague. I need like an example of what you mean by that, I guess. I just don't.
Okay, I'm trying. This is like a kind of new topic that I'm talking about, so give me a break. This is, I guess, really wild or whatever. But like, let's take Fox News for example. Would you say that they're entitled to say like basically whatever like propaganda or like bull that they want to spill out, and that they should have absolutely, I guess, like no government repercussion from that?
Well, I need example. Like, what kind of government repercussions like should they have? What do you mean?
Okay, I mean, like, let's say, well, I guess I'm trying to like think about how to phrase this without being like, okay, but then that could technically fall over like a defamation suit or something like that.
Defamation and all of that is stuff you can already sue anybody for. Like, I'm just trying to figure out. Like,
yeah,
what...
exactly. So that's that. I'm trying to think about how to phrase the argument where it wouldn't just like fall under that. So let's put it this way. Let's say Fox News lies blatantly about a statistic that has to do with climate change, and it's just like an absolutely false statement. And let's say that you can even prove that because of this false statement there has been a negative consequence, that it's affected like people around that area because they believe this false statement. Do you think the government should be able to like take Fox News to court basically because of it?
I mean, personally, I do, but I believe in deplatforming like bad faith actors. But like in terms of like how it works right now in current U.S. law, probably not. Like who decides what fact is a fact, or like what gets you like taken to jail or whatever. Like that seems to be a pretty big First Amendment infringement, sure.
Mm-hmm.
In the spirit of how the First Amendment works. But now, personally, I don't give a fuck about the First Amendment. For me personally, I mean, no, that's not true. I kind of like it, but like, I'm not like married to the idea of it. But if you do like the First Amendment, then yeah, you probably should protect companies, especially media companies, right to say like certain things, even if you think that they're kind of dumb or crazy.
Okay, because I was just thinking, and it does become a very gray area because, as what you said before, like even if I believe in objective reality and even if I believe in objective fact, it doesn't change the fact that if you have a government in place that just wants to jail its opponents, they could theoretically just be like, oh no, we don't believe this is real.
Yeah, sure. Would you want, for instance, would you want the government to be able to do that? What would happen to things like CNN or the New York Times or whatever with Trump as president? Like if we afforded those powers to the government?
Yeah, exactly. But then there was something else I was gonna say. But then I feel like somebody could make a counter argument to that, which is, oh, but then it would just go through the court process, and right now we have a fairly... Do you think we have, like, I guess, like a fair judicial system when it comes to problems like these?
What do you mean by a fair... What do you mean by a fair system?
I mean, like, a judge would be able to rule against the United States government and say, you're wrong, basically, trying to...
Well, yeah, that's what the Supreme Court judges are for, is to disagree with the U.S. government or their application of law sometimes, yeah?
Yeah, or even you don't even have to go to Supreme Court for the United States to be ruled against. So couldn't you say that you could have these laws in place without it becoming authoritarian and dictatorship?
What laws would you want it to have? What do you mean? What should the United States be able to do that it can't do right now, or what do you mean by that?
No, I'm saying that theoretically speaking, if you did have the laws in place that were, okay, the United States government can take these, or state government or whatever, can take these corporations to court for making blatantly false claims that have like proven to actually...
Yeah, these laws, you would have to like repeal the First Amendment, I think, to do this.
Yeah, but no, that's the thing that I was like trying to get back to. do you think that, I guess, that there should be a ruling stating that, oh no, you like companies aren't entitled to the First Amendment?
No, I don't think so. Probably not.
Okay.
Because then you'd have Trump like suing like the New York Times and Washington Post or like anytime they report on like any claim related to Trump, I guess.
Okay. I was just picking your brain at this. I don't really have a strong opinion on anything related to this right now because I really do have to do more research. So I was just wondering where you were coming from.
Sure.
So I think that's all I have for today, unless if you have some question or something that people have added. Okay, I am so pissed just because I complained about this to you on text about the whole thing of I misinterpreted a tweet and now everybody thinks that I'm a burn your bust person. So I just want to make the air clear. I am not burn your bust.
I think you probably burn your bust. I think I got it like a 25% chance that you're burning your buster. I have that in there, yeah.
Oh my god, you really think that?
I think there's a good chance of it, yeah.
I'm a dirty grifter. I have no.
I didn't say you're a grifter. Wait, what?
Not a grifter, but I don't know. I feel like how do you call it? I don't know. I think it's very annoying when people lie about their beliefs on camera. To me, it kind of does piss me off, and I think that at the end of the day, the only thing you have are your values, and if you're not being honest with your values, then why even fucking have them to begin with? If you're not confident enough to be able to, I guess, defend them. And I don't know. I don't like lying about what I believe in because most stuff I'm pretty confident in my beliefs. So yeah, if I was a burn your bust, I feel like I'd be honest about it. I'd just be like, yeah, deal with it. Like that's what I fucking am. But I think that it's a very selfish mentality to have.
Okay.
If
I go through like your tweet, because this is what usually happens, is after people say this, I go through their Twitter history and they're tweeting a whole bunch of stuff where it's like, if you don't want to support like Bernie Sanders, like that's totally fine. Like I understand, but I do have a whole bunch of dumb shit like that retweeted in your.
Do you think I have a bunch?
I don't know, do you? Because every single time I have this conversation with a lefty, that's how it turns out. That they always have like, oh yeah, like if you don't want to vote for anyone else in the general, I totally understand it. Go do your research, guys. Go get her. Does she have it?
What I have, and I'll be blatantly honest about it, is some tweets about the Iowa caucus, about people talking about the shady app kind of, as well as precinct voting. I had one tweet that I sent that I interpreted completely different, and the tweet was, blind support for centrist Dems means something worse than 4 more years of Trump. It means perpetual Trumps all the way down.
Okay, so that's I know the tweet because I've seen it retweeted. That's a Bernie or bust tweet. You understand that, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't understand that until everybody started talking about it. Because the way I interpreted that was that a centrist candidate can't win against Trump, and pushing a centrist candidate is just going to give us another 4 more years of Trump. And then I read more of the guy's tweets after people started saying, like you shouldn't just be, Bernie or bust. And I was like, what the fuck? How does this have to do with Bernie or bust? And then I was like, oh, okay, that is a Bernie or bust tweet, which then I clarified.
Okay.
But yeah, if you guys have any dirt on me, I'd love to hear about it. I feel like I don't.
I feel like a lot of people got exposed today for being Bernie or busters and engaging in grossly irresponsible conspiracy bullshit. Like I've seen that a lot on lefty Twitter today, and it's really, really, really disappointing. But,
I mean,
No, that's not good.
Yeah, like what I have retweeted about are like some I I'll be like open and honest about it. I have tweeted about how I don't think it's like I just feel like a caucus system in Iowa isn't fair. I'm a popular vote type of person. I'm like, I think that it's ridiculous that you do have certain scenarios where Bernie won the popular vote but yet is tied with Pete for delegates. I think that's quite strange. But that's just a personal opinion. I don't think that's very Bernie or bust. So, yeah, that's it for now, I guess. I'll talk to you another time.
Alright, I love you, buddy. Be careful.
Bye.
Now all of a sudden, all the wind is going to be taken out of his sails because of the faulty reporting. Are these same people going to come out and say, like, man, all the wind got taken out of